Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Hope so students you all are fine. Well, in the previous video we have learned about the central nervous system. Now we are going to discuss about the peripheral nervous system. What is basically the peripheral nervous system? Basically the peripheral nervous system. You all know that there are two types of the nervous system. The one was the central nervous system and other one was the peripheral nervous system. The central nervous system contains brain and the spinal cord, and the peripheral nervous system is basically all the nerves which are arising from the spinal cord and from the brain are basically known as the peripheral nervous system. If we are going to discuss the composition of the peripheral nervous system, then it is made up of nerve plus ganglia. Now what is this ganglia? This ganglia is basically the helping cell. They are made up of the cluster. They are made up of the cluster of neuron cell body. Many of the cell bodies of the neurons are actually forming the ganglia, and these ganglia are present outside of the central nervous system. Outside. Because you know that in the central nervous system there are only nerves which are arising from the brain and spinal cord. So the ganglia are present outside of the central nervous system and they are the helping cells. Now all the nerves which are arising from the brain are 12 in the number. The 12 nerves used to arise from the brain and these are known as a cranial nerve. While all the nerves which are arising from the spinal cords are known as a spinal nerves and they are the 31 in number. So students, if we are going to discuss about the cranial nerve, then there are 12 in number while spinal nerve, there are 31 in the number. Now these cranial nerves are basically made up of sensory nerves, like these cranial nerves contain these 12 cranial nerves contain sensory nerves as well as the motor nerves. The cranial nerves, basically these 12 nerves are basically some are the sensory nerves and some are the motor nerves. The sensory nerves are those nerves which usually carries the message from the sensory organ to the central nervous system. And the motor nerves are those nerves which usually carries the message from the central nervous system towards the effector. So these are basically what I want to tell you. But if we are going to discuss about the sensory nerves, then there are 31 sensory nerves and they all are mixed nerve. And you have learned in the previous lecture what is a mixed nerve. Those nerves which contains the axons of the sensory and the motor, both neurons. So they are basically made up of mixed nerve. If you are going to discuss about the nerves, then each nerve have two pathways. Each nerve have two pathways, and what are these paths? Motor path and the sensory path. So all the nerves, like whether they are cranium, whether they are spinal cord, if we're going to discuss about the cranium, these all nerves have two pathways. One is a motor pathway and other one is a sensory path. In the motor path, what is happening, the information used to, in the sensory first we are going to discuss, the sensory organ used to send the message to the central nervous system. While in the motor pathway, what is happening, the central nervous system is sending the message to the effectors. So it is sending the message to the effectors. Motor pathway and the sensory pathway, the two pathways for each nerve, and one is that the sensory, you can say, or for the you can say that sensory path is the path like sensory organ to CNS and motor path is the CNS to effector. Now here we can see students, here we can I can summarize you what we have learned, the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. Central nervous system contains brain and the spinal cord, and the peripheral nervous system contains all the nerves that are arising from the brain and from the spinal cord, like cranial nerves and the spinal nerves. The cranial nerves are 12 in the number, while the spinals are the 31 in the number, and these cranial nerves contain the sensory nerves as well as the motor nerve, while these 31 all contains the mixed nerve. If we are going to discuss about the pathway of the nerve, then each nerve have the two paths. One is the sensory pathway and other one is the motor pathway. The sensory pathway is in which the message used to deliver from sensory organ to the CNS. And motor pathway is that message from CNS used to deliver to the effector. Now, these motor pathway have two systems, you can say the two further divisions, somatic and autonomic. In the somatic nervous system, listen to me very carefully, the somatic nervous system used to control all the conscious and voluntary action. You know very well, conscious means होश में रह के, and voluntary means conscious to remain in the senses. And voluntary means that which are in your control. So the somatic nervous system is controlling all their conscious and the voluntary actions. This means that all the information which used to comes from central nervous system to the muscles, which muscles? Skeleton muscles are under the somatic nervous system. So all the information which is actually coming from central nervous system and delivered to the skeleton muscles. So this is what this will come under the somatic nervous system. But if you're going to discuss about the autonomic nervous system, then autonomic nervous system have further subdivision, that is a systematic nervous system and parasystematic nervous system. Obviously, the autonomic nervous system is reverse of the somatic nervous system. Somatic nervous system was that in which the voluntary action and the conscious actions are going to control. So autonomic is that in which non-voluntary and non-conscious actions are under the autonomic nervous system. So it is basically, it used to include all those nerves. It used to include what? It used to include those nerves which used to like sending the message from CNS to heart, you can say organ, and smooth muscles. It is like that, students, that involuntary actions are those which are not under your control. Like let's suppose when you have eat, no, the digestion is not under your control. The digestion will done automatically. Like you are not able to control your heartbeat. So that's why it is actually going to include all those nerves which are sending the message from central nervous system to the heart, to the organ, or the smooth muscles. Internal organs like heart, like kidney, like liver, gallbladder, the stomach, these all. Now these okay, so we know very well about that now. About the autonomic nervous system, now what is going to happen? The autonomic nervous system is basically further subdivided into the sympathetic nervous system, that is what sympathetic, and parasympathetic nervous system. Is it clear to you? The autonomic nervous system is basically controlling all the involuntary actions, the actions which are not under your control. So it is further subdivided into two parts, and that is what? Sympathetic nervous system and parasympathetic nervous system. Now it is very interesting topic. The parasympathetic nervous system is the system which used to deal the situation that you should handle in the emergency. Have you ever passed through from emergency, any kind of emergency? Like let's suppose if you are going to ask for delay, give me the test. Like let's suppose if I'm going to take the surprise test, what will happen? If you're not prepared for that, your heartbeat will start increasing, right? You ever have feel that? Let's suppose, let me to make a scenario. There's a night time, the darkness is everywhere, and the dogs are chasing you. Now what you are going to do? You are going to run very fast. How? How you are able to run that much fast? Obviously, this condition is controlled by the sympathetic nervous system. It means that it used to, your heartbeat is going to increase, your breathing rate is going to increase, your digestive system will slow down, it will pause to work, like it will slowly and gradually will work, it will, you can say, decrease its speed of digestion, as well as your pupil is going to dilate. So these all things are happening by the somatic nervous system to deal with the emergency condition, and that's why it is also known as the fight or flight. या लड़ो या दौड़ जाओ. So to fight or to run. So that's why it is called, somatic nervous system is called the fight or flight. Is that clear to you? So that's why what is happening here, beta? That you can say dilation of pupil, increase heart rate, increase breathing rate, as well as decrease digestive system. Now, the you can say the parasympathetic nervous system is basically reverse of the sympathetic nervous system. After dealing with the emergency situation, the body needs to come to the normal. And how the body is going to get normal? Obviously by the parasympathetic nervous system. And the parasympathetic nervous system, what is happening? The contraction of the pupil, decrease of the heart rate, decrease of breathing rate, and increase or normalizing of the digestive system. This is all. Students, hope so you get that. Let me to summarize it for you. If you're going to look at this image, then you are going to get each and everything very clearly. That is, the central nervous system is basically brain and spinal cord, and the peripheral nervous system is basically all the nerves which are arising from the brain and the spinal cord. The brain is basically the 12 nerves are giving arise from the brain, and the 31 from the spinal cord. The nerves which are coming from the brain are known as the cranial nerve, and the nerves which are coming from the spinal cord are known as the spinal nerves. The spinal nerves are further divided into the, you can say that there are two pathways. It's not only spinal nerve, all the nerves have two pathways. The one is a sensory pathway and one is a motor pathway. The sensory pathway is the one in which the sensory organ is going to deliver the message to the central nervous system. And the motor pathway is that the CNS is going to deliver the message to the effector. So in the motor pathway, there are two types, somatic and the autonomic nervous system. The somatic is basically controlling the conscious and the voluntary action. So that's why it is going to control all those nerves which are delivering the message toward the skeleton muscles, okay, or which are basically delivering the message from central nervous system to the skeleton muscle. Autonomic nervous system is all the work which is unconscious, like which is non-conscious. We are not in the conscious and involuntary action. As well as it is going to include all those nerves which are sending the message from central nervous system to the smooth muscles, heart, or the internal organ. Autonomic nervous system is further divided into two, that is the sympathetic nervous system and parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system, you know it very well, that is fight or flight, deal in the emergency, dilate pupil, increase the heart rate, increase the breathing rate, decrease the digestive system. Similarly, the parasympathetic is the sympathetic is reverse of the sympathetic nervous system. It is like that. It is when the body have done with the emergency. Now how the body is going to get normal. Whenever you are going to pass through any kind of emergency condition, after dealing it, you used to get normal. So this normal act is basically due to the parasympathetic nervous system. It used to contract the eye, you can say contract the pupil, normalize the heart rate, normalize the respiratory rate, breathing rate, and normalize the digestive system. That's all. Best of luck. Inshallah you have enjoyed this video. Hope so. And inshallah it is going to give you the advantage. So see the video again and again, make the votes, make the notes, and send me the audio. Best of luck. Allah Hafiz. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.